Welcome back. The Prime Minister's accused people of spreading lies about grooming gangs and claiming they aren't interested in the victims after Elon Musk accused Sir Keir Starmer of being complicit in the scandal. Let's get the thoughts of the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick, who's here with me now. Very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. So you and your party are calling for a full national statutory inquiry into this. Presumably that comes with some scale of acknowledgement that you should have initiated it yourselves while in government.
Well, look, we did do a great deal in government. Theresa May created the first reviews with Professor Alexis Jay that first shed light on this issue. Sajid Javid ensured that there is now a mandatory data collection, including by ethnicity. And in particular, Suella Braverman in recent times created the Grooming Gangs Task Force, which led to 550 arrests and drafted the legislation that now Labour say that they will take forward, which will make it mandatory for public officials to report when they come across these instances and increase the sentences of those who are ultimately prosecuted for being grooming gang perpetrators. But this is still happening in our country. So, of course, all of us should do more. And that's why we need this full national inquiry. When Alexis Jay did her first inquiry, she only looked at 6 places. We now think this may be happening in 50 places across this country. That's why we've got to get to the truth. And Yvette Cooper yesterday, I think, made the case for us. She was asked by the Member of Parliament for Keighley, how many victims are there of this scandal in Bradford district? Yvette Cooper couldn't say. She didn't know. That's why we need the unvarnished truth.
But I mean, Alexis Jay's inquiry took 7 years. It cost £200 million and made 20 recommendations in 2022 when you were in government. Why didn't your government immediately implement all 20 recommendations?
Well, we did begin to do that. The 2 central recommendations, the mandatory reporting and the tougher sentences, were drafted. They were in the Criminal Justice Bill. Sadly, that bill fell away at the general election. Now it's going to go through Parliament with our fulsome support. We created the Grooming Gangs Task Force under Suella Braverman. So good work was done.
Two of 20?
Clearly, well, those are the 2 central recommendations. But clearly more needs to be done. And more information is coming to light with every passing day as a result of brave victims coming forward and good investigative journalists like Charlie Peters who are bringing this into the public domain. That is why we need now to have this full national inquiry. I think, frankly, it's inexplicable that Oldham Council asked the Labour government to conduct a review supported by the Home Office, and Yvette Cooper and Jess Phillips, the 2 ministers there, said no. Why wouldn't you want to get to the truth, to support the victims, to stop this ever happening again?
Well, but Alexis Jay said your government was weak in implementing some of these recommendations. At the same time, you're saying that this inquiry wasn't sufficient. Your government, your party's government, was the one that set the terms of it and commissioned it £200 million ago, 7 years into the reporting. And again, I ask you the extent to which you point the torchlight on yourselves. If you're waving and screaming about not enough being done by the current government, they've had 6 months in power. They've had 1 week of the light being shone on this by Elon Musk. You had 14 years.
Well, I think we all should reflect upon what we did or didn't do, because if today there are young girls who are victims of torture and rape anywhere in this country, quite clearly not enough has been done. That is why we need to take more action. But it's wrong to say that the last government didn't do work on this. It did. That's why we know more and more about this. But
why are you screaming about this now, though? Simply because Elon Musk...
No, absolutely not. I know the media is obsessed by Elon Musk's tweets. I'm not interested in that.
So why weren't you shouting about this before Christmas?
I was. I called for, last year, full life sentences for perpetrators.
You didn't call for a full inquiry because your government had carried one out, which only now you're saying
I wasn't interested in this. I was. My record speaks for itself. I called for full death sentences. I called for the immediate deportation of foreign national offenders who are perpetrators. No ifs, no buts. Get them out of this country. I said that cowardly officials and councillors who turned a blind eye should be prosecuted for their failure to take this seriously. And I was criticised for saying that and by making the quite clear, evident link to cultural issues by British Pakistanis, for example. When Suella Braverman, when we were in the Home Office together, called this out, she was castigated by the media for saying that. We have been taking this seriously, but more needs to be done. I cannot understand why any member of Parliament, when this comes to a vote tomorrow, would not support a full national inquiry. Imagine if this was your child. Imagine if this was your granddaughter. There are children being subjected to systematic rape and torture in our country right now. We've got to eradicate this.
So that might be the case, that the right answer going forward, and I'm not taking a position on this, might be a full statutory national inquiry. But this is a pretty simple question. You can try and list the things you did do or Suella Braverman did do. Should you, when you were in the Home Office, have called loud and clear for a full national statutory inquiry when you were in the Home Office?
Well, I think things
Why not?
I think things have developed significantly
Because of
since
Elon
then.
Musk?
No, there's nothing to do with Elon Musk. I mean, honestly, I think that you need to get a grip. This is not about Elon Musk's tweets. I know the media are preoccupied by it.
Why
this
did
is
you
about
not claim?
children.
Why did you not?
I think it's about the vulnerable girls. We want to ensure that we get answers and accountability for the people who failed.
So if that is what is needed going forward, and it might well be the case, we're not taking a position on that, you have to acknowledge that you should have called for it yourselves.
No, because more and more information has come to light with every passing month as a result of good investor journalism, as a result of bravery from victims. There are now victims themselves calling for a full national inquiry. That is something that is more recent, and I cannot understand why we would ignore those calls. Let's give them what they deserve, which is that full national inquiry. We have that opportunity. That will be before Parliament tomorrow.
Again, I mean, I think it's clear for many people to see victims and their families have called for these things for a long period of time. One big thing has changed. It's got massive national attention. I also don't think it's a thing to be obsessed with in a negative way. If someone has changed the narrative, that's not a criticism. It's asking you a question about...
What brought this to light in recent days was the inexplicable decision by Yvette Cooper and Jess Phillips not to do a Home Office-led review into what happened in Oldham. I cannot understand why they would do that. And if we're going to do it in one community, why not do it for all of those communities across this country? Because we know this is happening, not just in Oldham, but in Rotherham, in Rochdale, in St Helens, in Middlesbrough, in Newcastle, in Banbury, in Aylesbury, in High Wycombe, in Ipswich. I could go on. In towns and cities the length and breadth of this country. Let's get the truth out there. That's what this national inquiry will enable us to do.
Of course.
And incidentally, it is not far right to call for this. That was an outrageous smear by Keir Starmer yesterday, which suggests he's learnt nothing from what has happened. He is trying to close down debate, precisely what got us into this mess in the first place. Alexis Jay said that weak and cowardly public officials turned a blind eye because they were fearful of being castigated, of being described as racist. And yet now, it's not just weak officials. You've got the Prime Minister himself going on national television to smear people and victims who are calling for a national inquiry and trying to close down the national debate on this most serious and grave issue.
Alexis Jay also said your implementation of her report was weak. And, of course, her inquiry was national and did take, 7 years to carry out. So there's some moving parts there. Just to move on, because we've only got a minute or two left, on Elon Musk in particular. Do you think he gets Britain?
Why are you asking about Elon Musk?
He's the richest
Why
man in the world.
Why are you not asking about the young girls who are victims
We've just
of this
spent
scandal?
8 minutes on that.
Well, I'm not interested in Elon Musk. I'm interested in
but I get to decide some of the topics that we talk about.
I don't think your viewers are interested in the tweets of Elon Musk.
I think a lot of people are fascinated by Elon Musk.
I think they care about the victims.
I'm fascinated by Elon Musk.
Well, I know you are. Much of the media are preoccupied by Elon Musk. The public care about the victims of this scandal, and they want to see action to tackle it.
And we've spoken about that. No, I'm not for a second suggesting that the victims of the scandal are not the most important thing that we've just discussed about. Do you acknowledge that we've spent 99% of this interview talking about that?
Well, you seem to want to talk about Elon Musk more than you do about victims of grooming gang scandals.
No, I think it's normal to expect in an interview to move on to a different topic, albeit a linked topic anyway, towards the end. I mean, again, I'm going to stand by that. Do you think he gets Britain?
I don't know. I believe in freedom of speech. I think that it's perfectly acceptable for anyone in this country or indeed around the world to be able to go onto a social media platform and make their views known within the confines of the law.
And Alexis Jay herself has said on BBC Radio today that she thinks that his comments have sped up the government's implementation of the 20 recommendations in her report that your government only focused on 2 of. So, again, you've denied that he's had anything to do with this, but many people would conclude from stepping back that he has changed the debate, but you seem to disagree with that. I think what's relevant here is the extent to which he might have shone a light on something and got it more attention, but also gone too far. And I'm interested in your takes on that. He said Jess Phillips is a rape genocide apologist. Is that too far?
Look, Jess Phillips is not that. That is not obviously acceptable or correct. But I do think that Jess Phillips is a hypocrite. You know, this is someone who has dedicated much of her political career to fighting for the victims of domestic abuse. And now she has the levers of power as a government minister, is asked by Oldham Council to provide the full support of the Home Office for a review into the most serious allegations of sexual abuse amongst young girls that we've known in this country for many years, perhaps in the modern history of our country, and she won't do it. Why? I cannot answer that question. You would have to ask her, you know, but I think that is hypocritical, weak and wrong.
And when she comes on, should she dictate the topics we talk about? And which questions I am allowed to ask and which questions I'm not allowed to ask?
But I'm simply saying that when we're facing one of the most serious scandals in our country's modern history, we should be focused on the victims, not on the tweets of an American billionaire.
Well, as was clear to anyone watching this, that was unquestionably the main focus of the interview. Robert Jenrick, as always, thanks very much for joining us. Good to speak to you.